What was clear was that all of the users and the Forest Service recognized that there was a high demand for trails and that our system trails were not meeting that demand.
The trail system that exists in Prescott is phenomenal. It's extensive and it's very accessible, but there weren't what we call in the industry bike optimized trails or bike specific trails. So the Forest Service were cautious, and rightly so. There hasn't been a project like this on public land in Arizona.
So when we saw their enthusiasm, we went ahead and applied to IMBA's Trail Accelerator grant.
IMBA is professional, and we know that the organization has built itself even bigger around trail design and construction, and so I immediately had a certain level of trust there.
We've been working a couple of years with IMBA to plan the trails, and then we've worked with the club to fund the trails. And the way that we're building trails is more like a hybrid, where we're using machines, but then we're using a mass of volunteers to do the finishing.
Well, we have an agreement with Prescott National Forest. Essentially means that we can use our equipment and volunteers to build trails on Prescott National Forest, and they can use their equipment and resources on City of Prescott trails. Our goal always has been that you should not know whether you're on a Prescott National Forest trail or a City of Prescott trail.
Part of what's made this particular project a success is knowing that our community was able to find resources. IMBA was able to bring in professional trail designers. IMBA and City of Prescott were able to raise funds. Those resources that were brought in by our partners makes for a much more sustainable system. It's one that's easier for us to commit to because we know that it's being designed and built with sustainability in mind.
And so ending up here at the Beak Peaks, where we've got the paved road right to the parking lot and immediate access out of town. I mean, a lot of folks are going to ride their mountain bikes from their homes to come use this system.
And then multiple options to come down, greens, blues and blacks. And again, the mountain bikers will all be going the same direction. And the climbing trail is conducive to wanting to do multiple laps and go back up for more.
Having these wider trails for adaptive bikes, but I guess just for the community, having these gravity flow trails. I mean, they're the first ones in Arizona, so the whole state's stoked about that. Just being able to have a bikes only area where they can go and just rip down. I think that's where it really is going to shine and fill that gap.
So yeah, it's really exciting for me as a recreation services director, because when I see kids at 10, 12 years old that are hardcore mountain bikers, I know when they're 50 and 60 years old, they're still going to be riding their mountain bikes. They're great trail advocates as well. They do a lot of volunteer work. So really it helps build community, even the Over the Hill gang. The local passion for trails and building trails and showing ourselves off runs all ages.
Over the Hill gang is part of our trail building and culture. We started in 2007, done 150 plus miles. It's all basically retirees, so hence the name, Over the Hill Gang.
I think I would encourage people who are trying to do something like this to get everyone involved from the very beginning.
It makes it so much more rewarding to us that we're truly in this together. And when you see that excitement and that enthusiasm and that willingness to work with us and try to understand our challenges, you can't put a price on that type of partnership and collaboration.